for Live with the Lemon Cohen Report. How you doing?
I'm hanging in there, getting ready for the holidays, the old Chris Mahana Kwanzaa, and the happy and healthy New Year. I'm looking forward to it all. In fact,
Chris Mahana.
we all, and I don't just mean you and me. I'm talking about all of those that subscribe to the Don Lemon Show, the Michael Cohen Show, the Lemon Cohen Report. Everybody deserves a healthy, a happy, and a safe New Year, because every day we're being put through a torturous event.
Can we talk about that? Because
Or
as we are live now, just a couple of hours ago, there was this drop this morning with the Epstein files. And we can go back and talk about what they did this weekend or did not do throughout the week. But, everyone's like, well, he's in the files. He's mentioned hundreds of more times in the file. And, New York Times did an big takeout on it, as did others. And, oh my gosh, he's on the plane. He said that he wasn't, whatever. So what do you make of that?
So we've already known that Trump was on the aircraft. We see it in the flight logs from way before. What this recent dump has exposed is that he was on the, we'll call it Lolita Express.
Press. And he was on there more than they realized.
Amen to that.
And they let on.
That he flew on it more times with Epstein than what was initially reported. I believe it's like 8 more flights. So everybody is now automatically, and I just have, because I'm having Aaron Parnas on my Mea Culpa podcast for this Friday, and I started talking to him in advance of the recording regarding this drop. And he and I ascribe to the same belief that all of this is just contextual. We need the file to be released so that we could place the context with the photos. We could place the context from the file with all of the emails and all of the other information. Otherwise, we're kind of flying blind. Now, knowing Trump as I do, yes, he was on that flight. You may say, why? Right? Of course, according to reports, and I haven't seen those reports, but according to reports, that Trump was on the flight and there were many children, female children on that flight at the same time. Therefore, he must have known what was going on. Now, once again, that's an assertion, and it could possibly be right. It could also be wrong, which is why, once again, each and every one of us constantly demand that they turn over the full unredacted file so that we actually know what's true versus what's not. But the reason that I believe that he was on the flight to the aircraft as often is because, especially in the 90s, remember Trump was going through some financial situations and his friend owned an airplane. He was going down to Palm Beach on a. What's better than having a friend with a private plane who's not asking you for gas money, right? It's not like, your buddy is asking you to take a drive and said, well, I'll drive, but you fuel up the car, right? Here, Epstein was doing very well. Trump was basically hitching a free ride.
Okay. I think we're going to disagree somewhat on that, because I think that, look, I do agree with you that there has to be context and everything should be released. I think at this point, just having this much of a connection, I think is disqualifying. And if you read these letters, right, and if these letters are to be believed, I'm not sure which, if you believe them or not, whatever it is. But if you read these letters, I think it's disqualifying for him to be president, to have this much of a connection to the most prolific sex trafficker in modern history.
Okay, now you've taken it to a whole nother atmosphere, and a whole nother universe.
But
I'm not disagreeing with you.
Can I finish my statement?
Oh yeah, of course.
And so, if you just, I put out a post. If you just read these letters, right? And look, I can say I would love nothing more than my friend who has a plane to fly me around. And I'm lucky enough, I do have a friend who has a plane, and sometimes he'll take us somewhere. Okay, that's great. However, my friend is not Jeffrey Epstein. That I know, and I don't know if Trump knew or whatever. My friend and I aren't discussing young ladies and young girls. We're not trying to pick up young ladies or young girls or young guys or whatever. We don't have that kind of a relationship.
Agreed.
And if I had a friend like that, I'm not so sure that I would be accepting rides on his airplane, no matter how terrible my finances might be. Just read this. Donald Trump, it says that this is for situational awareness. I want to let you know that the flight records we received yesterday reflect that Donald Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet many more times than previously has been reported, which means if they asked Donald Trump, he downplayed it, which was a lie, okay? Or that we are aware, which means that he could be even more than on the flight logs, including during the period that we would expect to charge in Maxwell case. Maxwell eventually was charged after this and was prosecuted and was found guilty and is sitting in prison. Donald Trump, again, a connection. In particular, he is listed as a passenger on at least 8 flights between 1993 and 1996, including at least 4 flights on which Maxwell was also present. Okay, Maxwell, again, in prison, found guilty. Maxwell on the plane, another connection. He is listed as having traveled with, among others, and at various times, Marla Maples. That's his wife, his daughter Tiffany, and his son Eric. Now, the Trump Justice Department keeps trying to embarrass or put Bill Clinton's information out there before they put Donald Trump, even though Donald Trump is in the Epstein files way more than Bill Clinton. And if Bill Clinton did something wrong, I don't think Democrats care. He should face the consequences. But they tried to embarrass Bill Clinton. They tried to put out there that this was Democrats. And then this shows up. I don't see one flight log yet, and maybe it'll come out. I don't see Hillary Clinton, and I don't see Chelsea Clinton on any flight logs. Now imagine your wife and your children on the train with a prolific sex trafficker. And on one flight in 1993, he and Epstein are the only 2 listed passengers. On another, the only 3 passengers as Epstein, Trump, and a 20-year-old. We don't know if it's a man or a woman, 20-year-old, doesn't say. On 2 other flights, 2 of the passengers, respectively, were women who would be possible witnesses in a Maxwell case. These are people who were either had knowledge of it, or they were part of it, or they were trafficked, or they were abused. We just finished reviewing the full records, more than 100 pages, very small script, and we don't want any of this to be a surprise down the road. Assistant U.S. Attorney, Southern District of New York. This is very serious and very damning, I think. And I don't think, contextualizing it, that's one thing. This man had multiple and concerning connections to a sex trafficker, and also brought his family in on it. So
Which is crazy.
It matter why it matters while he's on the plane. But hold on, just let me finish. And if you look at it, he said 100 pages, very small script. Remember those 100 pages that were completely blacked out? Is this part of it that they don't want to know, that us to know, and that they're covering up for Donald Trump? And I haven't even gotten to the gymnastics Dr. Nasser and that nasty thing that was written about the president and about Nasser to Nasser from Jeffrey Epstein. This is, I think, is disqualifying any other person. If his name was Biden, he'd be out. They'd be calling for his head. If his name was Obama, he'd be out. They'd be calling for his head. If his name was Clinton, he'd be out. They'd be calling for his head. If his name was, even if it was George Bush, he'd be out. They'd be calling for his head. But because he's Donald Trump, for some reason, he is untouchable. People don't believe what's in front of their eyes. I don't get it. I don't think that he should be president, even with the information that's out now, and there is more to come. I'm done.
Okay, so you could be very much correct that I think it's 1,000 pages of blacked out, redacted documents, literally from the first line to the last line. It's like 1,000 pages. And they very could well be the information that provides the context to whether it's the flight logs, the photos to Trump. It may very well not be. I don't know, because the page is completely redacted and blacked out. It's why we are all calling for the complete and total unredacted file so that we actually know what we're talking about. And I agree with you that there is a relationship between Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. That is inarguable. Nobody can turn around and say, Don Lemon, you are partisan, you despise Donald Trump, therefore, and nobody could possibly say that. There is a relationship. The relationship is predicated on photos of them together, of letters, of being in the 50th birthday, being on the flight, being in his black book.
At
Absolutely
his
100
wedding,
at
he's
his way, the
he's
whole
at
bit.
Donald Trump
You're
and Marla Maples'
100%.
wedding.
Yes, you're 100% right on that. But being all of that together with everything, again, from a legal perspective, I'm trying to find the criminality in the fact that he was on the plane, even though Jeffrey Epstein is a convicted pedophile. I get that. I'm not talking about whether he should or should not be president. As you know, Don, just like you, I didn't believe that he should. I was a supporter. I am a supporter of Kamala Harris. So I'm not arguing that either. I'm just saying from a legal perspective, I have not been able to find the criminality yet, all right, until the rest of the file is released so that
Yeah.
we can actually make the proper determination.
I'm
Because
not talking about criminality
facts
too.
do.
Look,
I am.
there
I
may
am.
be there may be some criminality. The
Hold
criminality is
on.
not the
I
only disqualifying thing for being president of the United States. This is supposed to be the party of character, the party of family values, and all of that. And none of that, or the party of Christians. None of this is Christian. None of this is should evangelicals should stand for.
and you
None
know
of
what the
this is
evangelicals
anything to
say to
do.
that?
Yes, they are because they're standing by this man and they voted for him.
But you know what they say? We didn't elect him to be our spiritual commander in chief.
And then they have a different set of standards than they
Of course
have
they do.
for everyone else, and that is hypocritical, and you
Of
know what that
course it
means
is.
to me? That means that they're not actually Christians. They're we can call them, sinos, Christians in name only, or kinos, Christians in name only, because that's not what a real Christian is. Now, I so I believe it's not just criminality. People get driven out of office for things that are not criminal. Look at what happened to Al Franken. People thought, oh, it was beyond the pale. It was the Me Too movement, whatever. Driven out of office.
I never thought he should have left.
And a lot of I never thought he should have left either. But what I'm saying is it's not just the criminality. Birds, there's an old cliche, as you know, an old saying that birds of a feather flock together. Now, I don't know anything about what happened and whatever. We don't know. Nothing we see is criminal here. But to be in that proximity for someone for so long, and you're going to say, "I had no idea." You're talking about young girls. There's video of you at parties, and young women are dancing, and you're whispering in each other's ear, almost kissing. It's like, what are we doing? Are we pretending that this is not true and giving Donald Trump every benefit of the doubt that we don't give other people? It's outrageous. We would never give anybody else the benefit of the doubt. They would be canceled, out of office, move on, let's look for someone else. But yet and
Except
still, the hypocrisy of the MAGA movement is evident right now.
I am never going to argue with you about the hypocrisy of the MAGA movement or the evangelical community and so on, and all of the things that Donald Trump has done, which is so outside of the pale. What I'm saying is, yes, it is the criminality that we're supposed to be looking for so that the victims end up getting the justice that they so rightfully deserve. Because hypotheticals are innuendo or
Those are two different things,
proximity
though.
to
Those
it.
are two different
No,
things. I think you're conflating two different things. Of course, we should be looking for criminality. That goes without saying. But what I'm saying is now, my whole point was with the evidence or what we have now, I think that's disqualifying. If something else comes up and we do find
but what
criminality,
do
of
you
course,
mean
that's the
disqualifying? Don, you can't disqualify a guy who's already been elected president. There were 70 plus million dopes that
Yes, you
decided
can.
that
His
his life.
party can say it's time for you to go. You're not the leader. You are not representative of this country nor this party. And we're going to vote to impeach you to take you out of office.
Well, they could do that.
That's what they could do, but they won't. And I believe if this was on the Democratic side, I have to tell you, I think Democrats would be doing that.
Yeah. By the way, your camera went off.
My camera must be mad at you or something.
It could be, and look, I want people to understand that you and I are exactly on par here. right? Ultimately, we will get to the same destination. I just believe that our route is different. As a lawyer, I want to see things from a perspective of facts. Now,
Mhm.
people can turn around and say, well, this and then couple with this and couple with this. This is what it means. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. And while I understand that the anger, the hatred, the disdain for the guy on so many reasons, for so many reasons, everyone's entitled to do that. In fact, the 2025 Oxford Word of the Year is rage bait, which is exactly what most of this is actually, right? I could easily turn around and say, abso-fucking-lutely, he's guilty as all hell, and that he should automatically be impeached, and his party, if in fact that they weren't fucking dirtbags and scumbags themselves, they would turn around, they would put articles of impeachment before the House immediately, and then at 100-0, it should be an impeachable offense because of his relationship. Well, that's not happening, all right? As much as people would like it to be, it's just not going to happen. But you know what? When could something like that happen? When the full and unredacted files are released, and then ultimately what happens if the documents prove the what many people believe? Well, then yeah, it's a whole nother story.
Let me ask you something, Mr. Attorney. Have you tried cases? But not all lawyers, I understand, are go to court, right? They don't they
Oh, I've
do
tried
this legal
cases,
thing.
sure.
You try cases, but not all lawyers try cases, right? I
No,
mean,
that's true.
right, you do
I
legal
mean,
work.
I've never tried a criminal case. I
Right.
tried medical malpractice,
Yeah.
tort litigation, absolutely.
Because people are under the impression that in order to be a lawyer that you have to be in there litigating. That's not exactly what all
No,
lawyers do. There are some
no.
lawyers who are in the background. There's some are just they've got the brain and they can instruct other lawyers what to do and right, like
Yeah,
they're
yeah, yeah, yeah.
sort of lawyer producers, so to speak. Okay, so here's the thing. So if you have tried cases, many of them, and I think you've said this before, people are convicted on what? Circumstantial evidence. And
Yeah.
and if you were looking at this case, is there circumstantial evidence here?
There is circumstantial
A
evidence,
lot of it?
correct. There is a lot of circumstantial evidence. However, as you said, and I agree with you completely, he is given a latitude that few other people, if anyone, is given. And what I am just saying is that based upon the photos, based upon the fact that he's dancing and he's pointing, and he's got the finger going and, he's whispering into Epstein's ear. Yeah, okay, great. He was there. Totally understandable. But that doesn't show a crime. And I'm
Yeah.
not even sure, based upon the circumstantial evidence that exists in this, it's very easy to turn around and to take the opposite position. All I'm saying is, I don't want to take any position. What I want is I want the facts. I want the documents so I can read through every single one of them, and then I can hold whoever is accountable from Donald Trump to Donald Duck. I don't give a fuck.
Mm.
I want every
I think
person.
everybody wants that. I think everybody wants that, but I think that maybe we're talking about two different things, and I understand what you're
We're
saying.
not.
This
We're not.
also
We're talking
okay.
about the same thing.
Okay, this is Larry Nassar. Remember, Larry Nassar is a convicted sex offender.
Yes.
I think it was dozens of young women went from 1996 to 2000, I think in 17 or 16.
Yeah, with the
He
U.S.
was
Olympic team.
convicted with the U.S. Olympic team and probably beyond. And so Jeffrey Epstein in jail, writing to Larry Nassar, "Dear LN, as you know by now, I have taken the short route home. Good luck!" Exclamation point. We shared one thing, our love and caring for young ladies and the hope they'd reach their full potential. Our president also shares our love of young, nubile girls. When a young beauty walked by, he loved to grab, snatch, whereas we ended up snatching grub in the mess hall and in the mess halls of the system. Life is unfair. Yours, J. Epstein.
You want to hear
Michael.
something crazy? It was breaking news about an hour ago.
Yeah.
So this information, the document that Don just read, came from where?
It came from, he was an MCC.
Right. It came from the DOJ as part of the
Yeah,
document release.
right.
Do you know that they're now saying that that document may actually not be legit? Imagine that they've now gone through the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of documents, and now they're claiming that this one, which was released by them, may be AI created, all right, and that they are now going ahead and looking into it to determine its authenticity. Could you
Okay.
imagine that shit?
Yes, I can imagine that because they did the same thing yesterday with the video that was alleged supposedly of Jeffrey Epstein offing himself, and I wouldn't put it on there because I said this stinks to high heaven. This was released by the DOJ, and if it turns out that it has not been authenticated or if it's not real, that makes them look even worse. That the DOJ, who has had this information for years and convicted someone on this information, that they themselves would not get it straight. Come on, man. They're playing games here. They're playing
Yeah,
games with you. They're going to blame AI for everything.
of course they are, right? I mean, anything, they made a mistake. They put this document into the batch. However, what if hypothetically, again, now that they're raising it, it's something that needs to be looked at? Here's the problem. Who's looking at it? The same people that released it, the same people that clearly didn't want it released, are the ones that are now going to tell you if it is or it is not authentic. You know who can actually tell if it is or isn't authentic? Larry Nassar, right? Did
Yeah.
you or did you not get this document? Or is now Todd Blanche going to go speak to Larry Nassar and move him off to the same place, for example, where Ghislaine Maxwell is, and give him a fucking puppy dog? You know, a lot of people get angry at me, and I don't particularly care, right? I really, truly don't, because I am a firm believer in facts. I always have. In fact, I testified, as everybody should here know, I testified 7 times before Congress for 63 hours. I didn't hide behind the Fifth Amendment. I didn't turn around and say, well, I can't release that information based upon attorney-client privilege or anything else. I didn't do any of that. If I knew the answer, I gave the answer. Even if the answer was beneficial to Trump or if the answer was detrimental to Trump. Plain and simple. I have always spoken truth to power. And as far as I'm concerned, and I believe most lawyers actually agree, as of the information that has been released now, because much of it lacks context, much of it, we can imply our own context, but that doesn't make it so.
But that's where the
Point.
DOJ needs to do their job, and instead of, because they're
Yes.
making Donald Trump look guilty and
Yes.
they're making people more suspicious. And if they
Yes.
put out something that's not authentic, that's them. They fucked up.
Yes, 100%. What the DOJ needs to do is to redact the names, do what they're supposed to do, honor even the fact that Donald J. Trump signed the law that was supposed to ensure that the full, not partial, the full file, unredacted except for the names of the victim, are to be released by December 19th. We already know what they're doing. They're flooding bits and pieces. Do you know, I've started going through the documents, and why I'm so angry about the way that this document dump is going. They have released the same information 3 different times now. The first one came from the estate of Epstein based on FOIA, based upon subpoena. The second was that big, gigantic dump. And then now this third dump. There's so much overlap. It is an exhausting task to go through these documents. If they would have just put it out there. Do you know the way that they're putting it out also? There is no search bar. So you can't go and you can't do a global search of, like, Donald Trump or Ghislaine Maxwell, or you could say Bill Gates or whoever else, or Woody Allen. You can't go ahead and you can't type in to the search bar in order to do a global search that would take you to which documents. On top of that, the redacted documents are supposed to run parallel to what's called a redacted document spreadsheet.
That has not
Meaning,
happened.
no, sir, it has not. And, it makes somebody like me who's going through these documents, it makes it virtually impossible. You can't limit the scope of you have to read every single document. And all of a sudden I'm saying, wait, I already saw that document. Wait, I saw that document twice already. So everything is in triplicate. It is mind-blowing. Mind-blowing.
It is mind blowing, and I think that look, I don't know as who was it? It was a Barbara McQuaid or someone on the MS Now said, "I don't know if it's duplicity or incompetence, or maybe it's a combination of both."
Mhm. What do you think it is, pal?
I think it's both. I think look, it's probably both. Well, it's duplicity. I know, in that they put out the information right. It's amazing that the first
75% duplicity, 25% incompetence.
incompetence. Well,
That's how I see it.
okay, so I'm glad you see it that way, because the first information they put out was all like a Bill Clinton and whatever, and you're like, okay, what's going on here? So that is duplicity, because they're playing in our faces, they're punking us, and then the incompetence set is that they're supposed to do all of these things, put them in context, and then have a redacted notes, as you say, right, next to the information saying why this was redacted, and none of that is happening. That's incompetence, I think, or they just don't give a shit.
By the way, could be a combination of all three there. That's the whole problem. It's why each and every one of us, and only because of the outrage by communities like this, by our subscribers, by those, and thank you for continuing to smash the hearts. It actually helps to bring more people via this algorithm. Thanks to people that are following, whether you like what I'm saying or you don't like what I'm saying, ultimately, you'll understand what I'm saying, because here's what's going to happen. Because of the amount of pressure that we are placing on our representatives, both in the House and the Senate, they are now continuing to push more and more, thanks to the victims themselves that stand up on the steps by the Capitol that will not allow this to go away. Have we been able to force the DOJ that had no intention of ever putting out a single document? So I believe the more we continue to push, the more we keep this into the sphere of conversation, the more likely we are to be able to receive the entire unredacted file. When you have people, believe it or not, people like Thomas Massey or even Marjorie Taylor Greene that are crossing over the line to say, enough of this bullshit. Everybody is speculating. You have all of these Epstein whisperers that don't know fucking shit from Shinola. All they are doing is, again, rage baiting. They turn around. They know that people fucking hate him, especially people who are here with us, that they despise Trump with every ounce of their being. But that doesn't mean that what they're saying is accurate. They have no firsthand knowledge. And
Mhm.
I'm telling you, one of the things we must ensure, every single person who did wrong, every single one of them needs to be held accountable. And we need to keep our foot on the gas as it relates to this issue. Every single one of us. Keep pushing your members of Congress. Keep pushing, the administration. Anything that you can do to help to demand the full and unredacted release in order to push people like Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche and this entire administration into releasing the documents, it's desperately needed. It really is. And only then are we going to see who's right, who's wrong, and so on. And believe me when I tell you, I've seen this game happen, unfortunately, too much, where, people want to believe what they want to believe, even when it's unfortunately not true.
Well, look, I agree with you on that. But my whole point is that even with what I have now, and I said this before, even before this came out, even for before that, I am shocked that this man is still in office. I
By the way,
really am.
I'm so sorry, Don, not to interrupt you, but when you say things like that, and I totally agree, because we've watched how many other elected officials get pushed out of office for much, much less than that. Here's the crazy thing. When people were voting between Trump and Kamala Harris, did we not already know about, I don't know, so many things that are negative, that would have caused people to run the other way, that would have been deemed political suicide. But
Mhm.
yet, for whatever the reason is, and it wasn't just the plurality of Americans that voted for him, all 7 swing states voted for him too. So I'm with you 100%. Anybody else would have been buried under a mountain of, political outrage. But for whatever the reason is here, it is beyond words. It's a cult. And no matter what the cult leader does, people are standing by him.
Yeah. Amen. Standing by him, and I'm gonna have to leave you here. We'll see what the next batch is to drop. The
But
next
I want people to, before I go, I just want people to understand.
Yes,
I
sir.
want to see accountability.
No, I think people know that, but I
I no,
mean,
no, a
Michael,
lot of
we're
the,
about lively
Cohen's
discussion.
compromised. I'm not compromised in any way. No one person that's out there has provided more truthful and accurate testimony than I. It wasn't just 7 congressional hearings. It was 2 grand juries, a civil as the key witness to a civil case and the key witness to a criminal case. Nobody has provided more. I'm not here to protect him. I'm also not here to turn around and to take my opinion and make it into a fact. That I leave for the Epstein whisperers. I'm
Yeah.
not interested in them.
But I think that what the way that this administration is handling it, the administration and Donald Trump, if he is not guilty, okay, they're making him seem guilty, and they're
100%.
making people suspicious, and we are all left to our own imaginations and to draw our own conclusions. And people do that as they do in the witness box all the time, as the judge does all the time in the courtroom,
But
as
what does the
the
judge
attorneys
turn around
do.
and say? Because then the attorney for the other side gets upset. Your Honor, objection, hearsay, speculation, right? There's 20 different things that you could object to. The judge will either rule, for it or against it, sustain or denied, right? Most of the time they will say sustain because you cannot go ahead and just throw hearsay or speculation into
Well,
it.
I'm leaving it up to the public, who's the jury, and I'm going to let the jury decide.
Then I've lost already.
Hey, Merry Christmas,
The
Happy New
same to
Year,
you.
Happy
The same to
Hanukkah.
every single one of you. Please, most importantly, all right, stay active. Give yourself a little bit of a chance to recharge because come January, we really have a big, big job to do.
Yeah.
A real big job.
Michael, what I like to, we'll probably speak before the New Year's, hopefully, but what I like is that we have lively discussions like this, and we've always had it. We had it when I was on CNN. We had it here on digital, and then we end up, it's like, hey, how you doing? What's going on?
Because
The way it
Don,
should be.
I respect you as a journalist. I respect you as a human being, and I know your heart. I know where your heart actually lies here. You're a very good person. You really are. And I don't say it because no, I'm dead serious. I know where your heart is. Your heart sits with these women who were abused, raped, mentally tortured, right? Trafficked, these children. And I know your heart. And I know, as you know, we were all entering into the Christmas and the New Year's and so on. We all feel for them and we want them to have some peace. I want them to have peace. And that's why God help Pam Bondi. God help this administration if they don't release the whole goddamn file for us. All right? Because you're 100% right. Nothing except for opinions are going to come out, and the opinion is not in his favor because the more that they hide, the more that they make him look guilty. So I'm with you 100%.
Michael Cohen, thank you, sir. I'll see you soon. Happy
You got it, my
holidays.
brother.
Be
The
good.
same.
Say hi to your family. Give them a
The
hug. See you.
same. The same.
Okay.
The
Bye-bye.
same.
Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss a show. We're live every weekday at 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern Time with new clips dropping at 2 p. and 8 p. And if you want even more Don Lemon Show content, join the Lemon community. Members get exclusive posts, behind-the-scenes videos, and live chats just for you. So hit the join button or visit our channel page to sign up. Thanks again for all your love and your support, and I'll see you next time.